In a world full of misery, rage, and insomnia, there's a place you can go to just unwind. All you have to do is take a long walk into the mountains, and just past the black house, the secret garden, you'll find a small cabin. Inside that cabin, you'll find the Hole in the Wall Book Club. So now that the dream catcher's hung and the fire started, we invite you to pull up a chair and join the Losers Club as we explore the world of slurping on people's necks and serious men. Hello and welcome to Hole in the Wall Book Club, the podcast where we talk about filling holes in walls. I had like this, and has Stephen King ever written a book about like an evil dyke that needs like Danish fingers stuck in? Okay, that got weird.
They go real weird.
That went weird places. Hello, welcome to Hole in the Wall Book Club, the podcast. God, I'm getting so close. I'm Anthony.
I'm Alex.
And I'm not sure if you could hear me peeling an orange. Going back into Salem's Lot. What did we do in this? 3 chapters, right?
Yeah, the end of part 2.
Yeah. And before we get into this, I thought we were so good on this one. I sat down to figure out like how we should divide up the rest of the chapters. And I was like, look at me getting ahead of the curve, because we normally do that about 3 minutes before we end the episode because we're bad at our jobs. But you want an orange?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay. This just in, Alex hates oranges. But our next chapter, going by the Audible measure, our biggest chapter so far was 2.5 hours. It was that lot section we just did last time, which we put in its own episode. The next chapter, the first chapter of part 3, is 4.5 hours long.
It's pretty much all of part 3.
Yeah,
there was like a little dangling epilogue or something after
There's a couple short chapters after that. I think they were like 10 minutes and like a 20-minute maybe, and then a tiny epilogue.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to be cutting the next chapter in half. This is where subsections actually became great, because it has 50 sections. We'll just do through 25.
That works.
So that's all you were here for. So until next time, I've been Stevie. I guess we should talk about this part. We actually got action in this part, like
quite a bit.
Yeah. We started off with chapter 11. Been 4 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're still in the hospital. Like,
we're still talking about whether or not we should believe this, because it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have let's approach this from the scientific angle for the 3rd, 5th time.
Yeah, we get Susan coming in. They do some chat. It's all stuff we've heard before, so skimming. And then they that's when I think this is when he finds out that Matt's in the hospital. No, he already knew that.
Yeah.
Matt's up and about. They go up to see Matt, and you got like Scooby Squad planning it all out. Which the plan, like, Ben went out of his way to make Matt feel useful. It was like, hey, you're in charge of research. Like Matt said something about calling down to the library and having books brought over to him.
Said it'd probably be closed, but, I know a guy, I'll get in, all that kind of stuff.
And then his plan is to talk to Jimmy Cody, I believe, the doctor.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, I know we've had this conversation 6 times in the last couple chapters. We're going to have it another time with a new guy to bring him up to speed. So prepare for a crossfade. Square wipe? Oh, I haven't done video edit. I think we get like a star wipe on this one. Yeah. But he doesn't really give Sue a job.
No, not really.
Which I think proves to be her downfall later.
Probably. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. She just felt useful.
I believe Ben's tactic is to claim. Does Cody or Ben come up with the disease? One of them comes with the disease to justify.
I think it's
exhuming.
It's Cody, because basically the disease is infectious encephalitis.
So basically, the plan is to exhume
Danny.
Yep. Because this will guarantee it. We're gonna see if he's still there, but preserved, or we're gonna see if he's not there at all. And I'm gonna be kind of honest. That Cody
jumps on the bandwagon quick,
a little too, weird. Like, okay, Cody, I know this sounds crazy.
You gonna tell me about vampires?
I just want to check to see if this boy is a vampire. Well, all right.
As long as you bring a rosary, I'm not getting caught up in that again.
Just kind of odd, but I guess sort of needs to churn forward. I mean, this is sort of the weird trap of this repeated science. Let's find this angle. It's that, like, we're watching this town get eaten alive, and Ben and Matt and Sue are sitting around planning the objective way to prove vampires are here. It's kind of like...
Right.
You probably should have visited the Marston house, like, a week ago. What
Right.
are you all doing?
Yep. You had plans to.
Yeah.
But, you know...
Instead, we should all
Best laid-
separate, put ourselves in dangerous positions, and then all get put in the hospital
Yep.
together.
So this boils down to, like, we do get a star wipe while they're explaining to Jimmy, so maybe they did a lot of great convincing there.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
That's kind of... It kind of... All of these new explanations so reek of the bit where they're talking to the cops, and it's like Ben and Matt after the Mike thing. It's like... And then they explained it, and it wasn't quite lies, but it wasn't quite the truth. And then when I called out, like, you couldn't figure out how to explain it.
Yeah,
Like, so you just hand waved it. This is happening. We get two new people that this group convinces, hey, vampires, in this section, in these 3 chapters.
Yep.
So we get to see...
All with their own angle of why they're quick to jump on board.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because you got the feeling that especially in the case of Callahan, who's the last in this thing, King just buttered Callahan up every time he was described up to this point, as if Callahan was sitting at home going, please, supernatural evil, please, I want to fight supernatural evil.
He's the
perfect.
zombie apocalypse person that's too into it to the point you're like, you're not getting ready, you're actively hoping for
Exactly.
this. Like, you want this
Those
to
doomsday
happen.
people who
Yep.
are just sitting in their bunker praying for the doomsday to happen,
Just
so they're
staring at the Marston house
Yeah.
till that asteroid hits.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want this other orange? It's delicious.
No, I actually ate a little bit before here.
I'm gonna ask you one more time by the end of this, and we'll see how this goes. But yeah, so a big thing with Jimmy, how the angle on Jimmy was Jimmy being like, a lot of bodies have gone missing. Because I think this is
that's the thing with all of these instances. It's right on the cusp. It's not utterly absurd. All of these characters have observed the absurd happening around them.
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, simplest answer, it may be ridiculous, but this is absurd. Bodies don't just vanish out of the morgue. Maybe it is something bizarre.
And this is Jerusalem's lot.
We're
We're
hutched
hutched over by a pig spirit. Bad things can't happen here.
But it's like I don't think it's Cody maybe accepting that vampires could be real. That's absurd. It's let's just exhume him.
Yep.
That's like the real world. Wait, you think you can just go do that?
He makes up this infectious encephalitis, and I think there's a point in here when Ben's like, well, could he have that? And Cody's like, I mean, technically, but no. No, it's fine. They can legally stop me from exhuming him, but they won't. I'm just gonna bully the family. It's fine. And they head out.
Which we're the previous chapters where we already became aware of his mom being a vampire turned.
Right.
Well, because it's the standard King popped up and goes, they're pale and look surprisingly,
They're complaining about that son.
Yeah, and then
they're missing
weird
son.
strength. Who wonders what they are?
Yep.
So you are now observing that with the knowledge that the mother's already turned. So you almost have an even slightly more insight knowledge that the likelihood that any family member is going to be like, no, is almost non-existent.
And then, like every plan that any of our protagonists have made in this book at all, it falls apart almost immediately. They go to the Glick place, and I can't remember. I think they see, like, they run into someone, I don't remember who, that's like, didn't you hear? Marjorie Glick died last night. She's on her way to the morgue. Or...
Wasn't it the neighbor? Didn't they pull up to the house and the neighbor was standing on the porch?
Right.
And they were like, why is no one here? And she's like, oh, well, yeah, something happened to her. And they just kind of U-turn out of there after the little conversation.
So they spend the previous section making the plan and all the trappings of how are we going to exhume a kid. And then they get there and they're like, oh, we don't have to. Let's just go watch her corpse.
Oh, right, yes.
And see if she rises.
He knows for some weird reason, Jewish coroner.
Yeah, it's Green's mortuary.
Yeah, and because they're packed or whatever, it's actually going over to that mortuary.
Right.
Cody apparently knows the guy and even has a favor owed to him because he massively helped him with something at some point. And so
he rolled real well on his hit the streets roll.
Yeah.
That's what happened there.
And so I think they just straight there because they're trying to beat the time.
Yeah,
they're trying
they
to
head
get
on
there
over
before
there.
she's moved again or something.
And we get an interjecting scene. I can't remember if it is before they get to the mortuary or after, but it's in this area. But we at some point jump to Sue. And Sue is finally following through on the original plan of visiting the Marston house alone. Because Sue's a genius. Like,
I may slightly take back my pre-plan of grabbing all the Sues from each book as my stand team. It's not that she's... Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So we get some scenes of her sneaking through the woods. I think she has like a stake made of a...
Are we on to the next chapter at this point? Is this still this chapter?
We get like a little bit of Sue before we jump into the next chapter.
Okay.
It's like a setup spook out.
Right, okay.
And I think this actually happens a little bit after they get to the mortuary, but whatever. It doesn't come back in this chapter, so going through it. She's sneaking up through the woods to the Marston house. It's the middle of the day, so she feels safe. I believe there's a bit where like she has a stake that's real crudely made. I think it's like a piece of wood she picked up off a broken fence.
Yeah.
And she's like hiding, watching out, and she sees the car pull out. So she's like, Straker's gone. And then we get, her internal monologue of like, I'm terrified, but I'm going to do this. This is really important for me to do alone because, not enough bad things have happened to our group. Let's just push right in.
Yeah.
Right. And then a hand drops onto her shoulder, and we cut out. She feels a hand put on her shoulder. We don't see any of this. And then we jump back to the green mortuary, and we get some action. Basically, Jimmy goes to the owner. I can't remember his name. I assume Green of some sort. But he goes to the owner, and he has the same story.
This is kind of where I was like fogging up when I remember.
Right. He's like basically like, hey, I need to check her for infectious encephalitis, which I didn't even look it up. I don't know what it is. And like even goes so far as to be like, they thought the son might have it. We were actually on the way. Yeah. And we get this real tense scene with Ben and Cody waiting for, I think Cody like pulls out a farmer's almanac to check the time of sundown. It was good. Like that, the tension that built up in that scene, I can't do it justice talking about it, was really good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's like a couple minutes after that hits that Marjorie decides to rise from the dead. Does that thing. And we've been talking a lot about the sexy life cycle of vampires.
Right.
Like, Marjorie seems to be breaking this because she's gross when she comes back. Wait, was she sexy when she came back? I can't remember. I think she went sexy earlier.
Yeah?
I don't know. But, oh, right. We got I forgot, as part of that prep, like, they didn't have any crosses or anything. So, they build a cross out of tongue depressors, which is real good. I love that, like, only the person who seemed to know the most about vampires is like, I need a rosary specifically. And everyone else is like, can I just hold my fingers like this? Got it? Yeah.
I'm actually kind of confused by, and this happened before and it'll happen again, but the whole they glow thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure.
Because like you have the whole faith thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would assume like, oh, okay, like the faith in it will, but like, would it be right to assume that when Mark does it earlier to Danny that is there any reason to think Mark believes diddly squat? But like, grabs the toy cross and just
let's start some theory crafting early here, because I think that whether or not Mark believes in religion, I think Mark believes that the cross will ward off the vampire. So I don't think it has anything to do with God or like divine power. I think it's a focusing of the Shining in a moment of intense panic. That's what I'm saying.
I know, without giving it away, I know one tiny spoiler of something we haven't read.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that spoiler will probably undermine that position.
Okay, when we get there, I will swerve around that spoiler and come back on course. Don't worry. I will construe a way for me to believe this. I know how to approach a theory. And it's with steadfast determination.
Because it's the one thing I think that pretty epically occurs in the Salem's Lot movie, TV movie thing that is replicated in here. So it's like the one spoiler I do know that'll be in that last chunk. That occurs in relation to using it. That I kind of think probably makes it not that, but maybe
we'll see.
The thing is that it's King, so it's kind of like this weird game where 5 different things can all do the same thing.
Right.
So it could be like Faith powers it up, and The Shining powers it up, and Gas power. I mean, it could be anything.
This one's got a crank on the bottom. Ready.
Makes me think of the little box, the monkey.
Oh yeah.
Carnival music.
Pop. Now you got shiny. Yeah. Oh, I love it. But yeah, I guess jumping back in, we get a cool vampire fight here. I really enjoyed this. There's a bit where Ben slaps the tongue depressor thing through her face. There's a bit where she bites the hell out of Jimmy Cody. Jimmy Cody.
His name sounds like the Jimmy Dean sausage kind of.
Ooh, I'd buy breakfast meats from a man named Jimmy Cody, even if he sold them out of like a truck. Oh, we're falling into Barlow's trap. That's what the whole point of the book's about. Jimmy Dean sausages,
which are apparently people.
Yeah,
that's the. I still, there's one arcing thing that's been driving me nuts, even all the way up to this point that we've read, that I still don't grasp. And even when he goes on that tangent to who does Barlow meet like walking away in the street? Was that?
Oh, what's his name?
Who gets the guy who cheated?
Yeah,
who's doing the wife cheating thing, and he goes on and on and on about towns and the stuff. What is he doing? And do you suspect that all this book will ever tell us what the hell Barlow's doing? Because it kind of feels like it feels like King's dropping hints where like he's actually just trying to turn this town into evil vampire town.
Right.
But why?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And that you could maybe normally leave that off the back because you're just trying to enjoy like what's going on. But what's going on is so crazy that without the explanation, it kind of, I don't know, like
it seems really meticulously planned.
Yeah, vampire stories. You know how they kind of roll out. The vampires are usually having like some goal, even if it's just a feast and slaughter or something. Right. But this feels like Barlow's planning, picking the specific people up, grabbing them, converting them. It's like, I guess this goes back to maybe the Lord of the Flies. He's turning the town into a cult. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's like a vampire cult thing. But I just don't. Because he almost comes at the people he turns with like. You could say it's fake, but you could also equally state it is real compassion because he seems to pick people he likes who they are to begin with.
Right.
And then converts them. So it's this weird, it's really weird. I don't like, it makes who's getting turned and not turned look like weird, like as if it's, I guess it's sort of trying to look like almost Barlow versus Ben in the story sense.
Right.
Like, because Ben was drawn here. Almost like Ben was drawn to do the good here. But we get from the prologue...
Which, I don't even know where that's coming from.
Yeah, but we get from the prologue that we know at some point the town gets wasted.
Right.
And so Ben doesn't accomplish diddly squat.
And bit of a spoiler, not the prologue... As we'd talked about, and I think both jumped on the bandwagon of predicting at some point where we thought it might be between part 2 and 3. I can't remember if you did, but I'm pulling you under with me. That's what that was. Yeah, it's absolutely not what's happening.
Almost not even close.
It's
not even...
Unless, like, we turn the page and it's, like, 3 years later.
Yeah, unless it's that. Which I don't
would be
suspect.
I would quit.
Yeah.
I'd quit. Like, that'd be under the dome levels. I'm done for me. I don't know. I guess, jumping back in.
Yeah.
We get this vampire fight. Jimmy Cody gets bit at some point. And then I think it ends with Ben basically holding the cross against her, about to vanquish her, and she turns into mist. It just jets out.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
There's another ability vampires have.
Yeah, because that was actually kind of described kind of cool. Doesn't she go through like a wall?
Yes, yeah. He's like holding her against the wall, the cross in one hand.
And then describes it as almost if she just merges and melts into the wall and vanishes. That was pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
She tries to throw around some mind control, almost gets them a couple times, especially after Cody gets bit. Cody goes on a freak out about, like, I can't remember what he ends up injecting himself with. It's some medication that he thinks might kill the virus to stop his transition. And it seems effective, or at least he stops having this yearning to help her and feel her call after he injects himself, or at least says he does. So he might be a sleeper agent.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
But yeah,
It keeps flip-flopping between something biological and supernatural,
Right.
how you get turned, so it's kind of weird.
and then Cody punches Ben right in the face as hard as he can, so that they can lie to the police.
And this is where Dean Koontz starts writing.
Yup.
Part 3 is actually just written by him, if you notice at the top.
An albino police officer with a super intelligent golden retriever enter the scene. No, I can't remember what county. It was not the police from Salem's Lot. It was that local county's sheriff. And their plan, at least this lie to the police, was fully explained. It was, guy broke in here, stabbed me with the bites and such, or bit me or whatever. I can't remember the exacts of what they said there. And punched you in the face, took the corpse and ran. That's all we know. At least they had a plan.
I guess it's the story.
Right.
I mean, who's yanking corpses is a little odd. But
Right.
yeah.
I mean, but I guess there's a bit more legitimacy. A couple corpses were yanked recently, so...
It'd even be more absurd, I guess, for the cops to be like, you did this to each other to fake it.
Right. And the sheriff sees straight through it.
Yeah.
At the end of this scene, into this chapter, calls them out directly like, I know you're lying. I just don't have the evidence to prove it. And I can tell you're terrified. Why don't you just tell me what's going on? And our boy's just like, no, it was the truth. Ta-ta. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed it a lot 5 chapters earlier.
Yeah, basically. I was about ready to say, if you could just sort of skip the beginning of this half of this chapter and it had just picked up after the end of the last one, that would have been better.
It's really, in a book where so many important things are happening in the background, it's really weird what we are given to see in the foreground.
It's like he keeps trying to reestablish tension instead of running with the tension he creates. Like, we've talked about so many scenes we liked that were creepy at the end. You know, how every person ended up in the hospital. You know, we spot... And instead of, okay, next, it was as if he just kept going, okay, let me remind you how scared you should be.
Right.
Now let me remind you how scared you should be again. And then, at the third or fourth time, I'm like...
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. Can I just read a book for a while?
Yeah.
Give me the spook notes.
Spook notes.
I swear, that's $1 million idea.
I think so.
But from there, we're on to Mark, which I think was Mark 1, or might have just been the only Mark chapter.
Mark Atreides, because apparently he has the gift of prescience.
Yep.
Or something, because this kid keeps rocking house for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We get... Yeah, it's just Mark, so we're not going to get another Mark chapter. But we get Mark... I can't remember if it starts in his house or not, but he very quickly goes to the Marston house.
Yeah.
He's prepped. He's got a nice steak that he whittled himself.
But once again, we were given an immediately parallel of she's technically an adult going and doing something dumb, and then Mark gearing out MacGyver style and going in, and you're just like,
yeah, he even takes his dad's gun.
Why can't anyone meet Mark and just put him in charge? Because you all just suck at this.
Yeah, yeah. And we get Mark sneaking through the woods up towards the Marston house. He sees Straker leave, and then he sees Sue being clumsy as hell and is like, I'm gonna go put my hand on her shoulder. And that was our jump scare. So they meet up, and Sue's just like, hey, here's a bunch of excuses, and Mark's like, you're here to kill the vampire, right? Come on. And I love this. He's like, no, there's no such thing as vampires. He's like, you got a really shitty steak. You're creeping up on the Marston house in the daylight when the vampire's weak. Why don't we just team up and go kill a vampire? Come on, it's really easy.
Yeah.
It's delightful. And then Sue's just kind of like, okay, cool, lead the way. You got this, little kid. You're fine. I loved it. I
was half expecting Mark to end up like Blade or something, just tossing steak guns,
Yup.
silver-edged swords. I thought he was just going to go in there and hack the place up.
I was talking to Whistler, and he developed this serum. We stabbed the vampire with them, it'll explode. Yeah. Whistler, is that the right one?
Yeah.
I always mix up the
he's the
support
partner,
personnel.
yeah.
Then they go sneaking around the Marston house, peeking in windows. Do they get the door open before they get surprised? I can't remember. They're sneaking around the Marston house, and eventually Straker's just like, hey.
I won't specify yet because it hasn't happened yet, but we both guessed right on her.
Yep. That's true. Earning me my only points so far.
Yeah.
So Straker shows up and he's like, hey, I'm back and this is my house and I'm a lot stronger than both of you.
Yeah.
And God, that was some immediate comeuppance. How's Sue at the field at this point? Like, I'm gonna go check out that Marston house. And then the hand on the shoulder freak out, like, oh, I just got scared by a small child. Oh, that guy's actually gonna beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Sue gets tied up.
I was gonna say, yeah, don't they get tied up and stuff?
Sue gets tied up, put in the basement with Barlow. And, like, Straker's explaining all this. He's like, I'm gonna put her down there so he can eat her and turn her when he gets up. I'm gonna put you up in the attic, tie you up, and he'll eat you later. Cool. We got this down. And then fucking Mark, they never say it, but Mark just straight up taps into The Shining at this point. Like, that is...
Yeah.
The most logical explanation, which is saying something. He goes through this like, what did I learn about Harry Houdini? Okay, expand all my muscles to make everything is like, no, it was before that. He goes through this, he gets thrown into the room. He's not tied up yet at this point. And he goes through like this flash of like, okay, I could try to attack. I think it was I could try to attack him. He's going to kill me. I could jump out the window. And like this is described as him seeing these images happen.
It's like the playground.
Right.
And he figures out how he's going to beat the bully up.
Right.
He just kind of methodically
Right.
figures out how he needs to do this. And then...
Yeah, he could jump out the window, which he might get away, but he'll probably land on a fence and die. And then he comes to the plan of flex real hard and wiggle out of the ropes later. The graphically described ropes. Like, imagine the, like, sneaking through the rafters scene, but also mentioning a young child's testicles. Like, that is this scene. Like, it's just, like, about, like...
Bizarre out of context statement.
Right? Barely makes sense in context. Yeah. It's this whole, like, Straker, like, basically sets these ropes up. So, hey, when you wiggle, these are going to squish your balls. It hurts. And so Mark wiggles out. Like,
Yeah.
In a...
If you haven't figured it out yet, Mark is actually Jason Bourne.
Right.
As a kid.
Right.
He changes his name at the end of the book to Jason Bourne.
He doesn't grow up to be Jason Bourne. This is him gone through some technology to become back as a child with the full memories of Jason
Yeah,
Bourne.
because that's what this feels
No,
like.
he's good. He's good at everything. I'm pissed that you're picking first on the Stand Survival team, which I still tricked myself into because you knew who I was going to take. You knew it. And I have a feeling you're going to be going Mark here, especially after.
It's almost stupid not to.
Yeah, I'll take Sue. Ugh. But we get a very, very long chunk about how he slips out of these ropes. It's
in the right spot to be the rafter scene too. It's about 2/3 through the book. That's when the rafter scene started. So I guess part 2 into part 3 is where King just slows down and intimately describes one thing to you.
Yeah. I will give this slightly more credit than the rafters scene. While the rafters scene was an important event, it was not a tense event.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
At least this has tension.
There's at least tension
Straker can be
here,
back at any time. And eventually, Mark gets out.
Now, they could have added attention to the scene if it had been like, oh, his foot slipped. Ooh, he's like falling down.
Is he going to be the local heartthrob? Tommy Ross, head cracked on a bucket? No. And then, so he gets out of the ropes, and he, I think at this point, starts hearing Straker coming up the steps.
Yeah, because he, like, preps.
Right. And his prep is taking the metal leg off of a cot, and then Straker opens the door, and he just beats the shit out of him.
Crit him. Roll D20.
It was real good. Like, and once again, like, who the fuck is Mark? Because, like, you get his internal process here. He, like, hides behind the door, and then he explains that he brings down this metal pipe not quite as hard as he can, because he wants to sacrifice a small amount of power for better accuracy. And I'm like, Paul Atreides, is that you?
Yeah, no, it's just that's what the internal monologues were slightly reminding me of, when Paul just kind of sits there and goes, okay, yeah, okay, I figured it all out. This is exactly how you do it.
Yep.
And it's the same thing, too. He's just like, I am a mentat, predicting all possible options. This is how I crush his head in.
Yep. First blow kind of knocks him down. There's a bit of a jump scare here where Straker grabs his leg.
Yeah.
Paul just beats the shit out of Paul. I've done it. The connection is complete. Mark beats the shit out of him, slips out of the room, throws on his still suit, and then just books it down the steps.
Still suit.
God, if you haven't read Dude, I'm so sorry for this episode.
Oh, yeah.
And then he almost makes it out before he comes to the basement door and hears Sue, like, call it out for him.
Yes,
At least at this moment, we find out Mark is human. Like, he has some
He's not a
human
cyborg
weakness.
sent from the future to stop the vampires.
Right. Right. Because it's getting dark. He's like, I can't help you, Sue. I'm not going to have enough time. We're both going to die if I come down there. I'm so sorry. Also, I'm just fucking too scared, too. Thank God. Kid's human. And then he runs. I think we get a bit with, like, Barlow calling up at him.
Mm-hmm.
Basically being like, hey, we're going to get you eventually. Why don't you just come on down?
Have
let
we
me
pointed
get you
out
now?
that happened to Sue? Did we just... She's turned, right?
Not quite yet.
Not yet.
Because this is, like, right before she's turned, before he runs out of the house.
Oh, okay.
And we get, like, Barlow waking up.
Oh, is it later when she tries to...
Yeah, it's our next scene.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the next scene right after this. But, like, we get this little bit where, like, Barlow is basically being like, hey, most of the town's mine. Why don't you just join me? It's inevitable. And Mark, does he piss his pants? I was about to jokingly say he pissed his pants, but in Stephen King writing, that's about 50% chance there.
He's super... I don't know.
He's terrified.
Something... I know he's super freaked out. I can't remember if he... Maybe?
But he runs home.
Yeah.
And, like, the whole time, there's some thoughts of, like, you know, I need to find other people. Wait, that writer, I should probably find that writer. And then we get that scene you were thinking about.
Right, yeah. I was misplacing where it was happening at. Yeah, she does the little... that weird noise you may have heard me going... There was a hand gesture with that, a seductive hand gesture.
Yeah, just imagine the most seductive hand gesture that brings to mind. It's got me roaring to go.
So Sue basically shows up at his...
Is that his window? I think
at
it's the
his
same
window,
one.
and it's a very similar... Hey, come on, give in. You know you want to.
Mm-hmm.
That very, very similar to when Danny or whatever was there. The
Yep.
let me in, you know you want to seductive thing. But
Yep.
does he just ignore it?
Yeah, basically it's like, no, go away.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't think he did anything special. He just kind of ignored her.
Yeah, and then there's another moment where Sue kind of, once again, kind of repeats the Barlow stuff of like, hey, most of the town's ours. Which gets Mark's head spinning. He's like, I gotta find that Ben guy. Unless they already got to him, then I'm fucked. And that's pretty much that chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get a chapter that's gonna be so little to talk about, even though it's probably one of the better chapters.
Yeah, definitely.
You wanna...
I like...
Father Callahan. Which at least this was, I think, a Father Callahan 1, right?
I believe so. Is this mainly him?
It's mainly him and
until Matt's
talking.
there, and then they talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Callahan. He calls him to there. Does Matt ever leave the hospital?
No.
Okay.
No, it starts with on that same Sunday evening, Father Callahan stepped hesitantly into Matt Burke's hospital room.
Oh yeah. So this would be the one exception I think in the book, and like we had mentioned before, the like convincing people element.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one, and we'd also mentioned that like in this case, Father Callahan was buttered up in his description beforehand.
Right.
But even with all that said, this is probably the most sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like it's not Callahan just wanting to like fight something supernatural. This goes back to his statements earlier about how he kind of felt uncomfortable that evil was more passive.
Right.
That like people are just bad, people do bad things, and evil's not like a demon on the other side of a battlefield you can just slay. And so you kind of, I don't think Callahan's like particularly apprehensive like really to begin with at all.
No.
I think he like kind of
Callahan's the first one to say vampires.
Yeah,
he
that's
sees
right.
Matt
Yeah.
surrounded by a bunch of books on vampires.
The
being
books.
nervous.
Is he still wearing the cross, Matt?
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
so.
yeah,
at
so
that point.
he's still got the crucifix hanging on his neck and everything. And remember, like almost no one in the town's actually Catholic. Weirdly, despite the fact that there's a priest here.
Mm-hmm.
But brings that up. Do they plan what they want to do before he does his thing with it? Like before. I the thing I'm kind of misorganized on is the Matt Callahan part more resolved before the Callahan himself element, or is it? Because I know there's like a stint right before the end of when he's going to go call Ben that like he kind of goes in on himself before.
Right. They get through a long conversation, and this sounds like we're being dismissive. It's actually really well written. It's good.
Yeah, this is kind of the issue I'm having with this chapter. It's really well written, and you want to read it.
Right. It's hard to give any details.
If we just bullet pointed you, it'd be like, they talk, they agree, Father Callahan's going to go call Ben. And that's like the super way to describe this, but super easy way to describe this. But
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what Matt actually asked him to do.
I think it's to hook them up and like join with them, right? Like hook them up as in like he needs him for like the sake of crucifixes and holy water.
And like basically do investigate it as a church official. Like there's some talks of exorcisms.
Yeah, like maybe he could even call on something to help. And because I remember Callahan's response to this is something along the lines of, this would not be him doing something as just some priest in a town, but this is him wearing the mantle of being a priest. Like Callahan kind of gets like amped. He kind of gets the impression that he's just like, yeah, I get to speak as a, an agent of the church. Like he really digs the idea that like he's been sulking in this town for a while, and now's the time to be an agent of the church, to go out there and do this thing, use the rights he knows, use the knowledge he has to fight supernatural evil. And
he goes on this really intense, well-written bit about like the Catholic Church. He says at one point, it's been in the process of planting both feet in this world and focusing only on the physical, not the supernatural threats. And this is when he decides to join. I have to read part of this because it's wild. Where there are no witches or incubi or vampires, Matt says, but only child beating, incest, and the rape of the environment. Yes, Matt said deliberately, and you hate it, don't you? Yes, said Callahan quietly. I think it's an abomination. It's the Catholic Church's way of saying that God isn't dead, only a little senile. And I guess that's my answer, isn't it? What do you want me to do? And it says, Matt told him. So we're not ever given exactly what Matt asked for.
Well, I guess we're kind of plucking from what they said they wanted to get him for.
Right.
Yeah.
And then from there, basically they're like, okay, let's do it. And Callahan walks home. And this is the bit you were talking about, right? Where he's trying to call Ben. He calls.
What is the very end? Doesn't it have a cool ending? Isn't it like a little wrap up that was pretty cool? Am I wrong on how that?
It's him like just unable to get a hold of Ben, and then just being terrified.
Okay, yeah, it's just another one of those I'm scared things. Okay.
Like he kind of just looks around and like I think it's him taking a moment to finally process everything that just happened, and he's just and the last line of the chapter and the part is, the terror he felt was for his immortal soul.
Yes, that was it. It was this like kind of, I remember getting the feel through the chapter of this kind of, and he keeps talking about how the church both feet in the world, seeing God. It's kind of like him making the idea that the church was only placating the good in the superficial sense.
Right.
And so he wasn't taking that supernatural element seriously. So now confronted with supernatural evil, he's like, oh, my soul, man. Like
oh, right.
This is
got one of those.
Yeah, it's like,
do I want to go full Constantine here?
Yeah, it's like, now I realize that with supernatural conflict comes supernatural consequences.
Oh shit, hell's real.
What if I get turned? Is my soul damned?
Yeah. And all in all, I enjoyed this chunk. I wish it had come a lot earlier. I feel like you could have knocked about 100 pages out of this book and it'd be better.
Right in the middle.
Right.
Quite honestly. The first beginning's fine. As we're catching into 2, and I suspect 3 will probably be pretty solid, the big time sink of the middle of the book. Because did he really need to, like, do this many surprise turns?
Yep.
About the time we got, I'd say... No, I'm good. About the time we, I'd say, I suspected after Matt... The second time when Sue and Matt are talking and he goes upstairs, has the heart attack, and that guy, I thought that was...
Right.
That had to be the penultimate encounter with a vampire, and then we're going to do something.
Yep.
But then we get like 3 more. That person's a vampire secretly. That person's... And it's just like, we get it.
Right.
The town's been taken over. Now can we have the confrontation?
Yep. So, let's hit the board real quick. I have some stuff that is only tangentially related, but it's... I've been reading The Institute, and I recently watched Dr. Sleep. So, because they're both kind of newer, I want to talk at the end where people can cut it out if they don't want spoilers.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not going to go... I know you haven't read or seen either, so I'm not going to go super deep, but, like, big topic things.
Okay,
So, I'll talk about The Shining a little bit.
Yeah.
But in the board, I think we marked it off last time, but confirmed, we got Marjorie Glick as a vampire.
Yeah.
which we both voted dead, no points.
Nope. Yeah.
And Sue, vampire. We both voted
both voted vampire, so same amount of points.
So we are now at 4-2.
Yep.
You're double me. You're double the serious man that I've ever been. So
I'll tell you what's weird on the board is there's the farm kids surviving. They just haven't shown up.
Right. So looking
like,
at our next section, part 3 is Deserted Village, and chapter 14, the big ass chapter, is the Lot 4. So I think we're going to see the fate of most of the people on the board.
Yeah, I think I think the board's gonna get done pretty much there. We're gonna get probably the fleeing or the.
Which means I gotta finish up that trophy soon.
Yeah. So
this nice woman at a local trophy shop gave me a free trophy, and if you don't touch it, you don't realize why she gave it to me free. It's so walkie talks, but you know what? Perfect for what I need. So no complaints.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Oh, you wanted to shine.
Yeah. So we have been kind of talking since Carrie about TK shining. Is there a difference? I am starting to think that there isn't, that the shining is like a colloquial name for certain types of TK, etc. Because in the Institute...
Does the Institute reinforce the TK only girls thing?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So that's out the window. But at the Institute, No, I had to double check, because at the Institute they're divided into either TK or TP, which TP has been more the realm of shining in general, except like real strong TKs like Carrie had been a TP. But the Institute makes this big deal about almost no one has both. So the Institute power level is a little different. Like the strongest person that I've seen in that is nowhere near Carrie. Like Carrie is a god to them. Like, whew. Wild. But
which kind of brings up the whole like fear you see in Carrie when they keep saying this could happen anywhere again and again and again and again and again. But if you're encountering like TK and it's not exploding.
The Institute also, a bit more spoiler here, so cut off if you don't want to hear. Come back just to listen to the credits. I know you have to listen to those every time. But the Institute has been around, I don't remember the exact date, but since like the 50s. So established as there during the Carrie stuff, or close after. I don't know the exact dates.
Makes you kind of wonder if it's related to any of the talking in Carrie.
Mm.
Either that guy or one of those boards of scientists or something. Kind of
right. And also the Institute name dropped Salem's Lot. They were going through like conspiracy theories, and they mentioned that like the town of Salem's Lot, anyone who lived there would tell you the weird stuff happened. If you can find them anymore, they all dried up. So, yeah, I just
interesting.
know that. And then in Dr. Sleep, which I know Dr. Sleep as a book came out well before Institute, but
did it?
I thought
Dr. Sleep was kind of like.
I have no idea.
I remember like walking to a bookstore. I don't feel like too long ago and picking up like the hardback when it was coming out. Or
I thought it was an
not
older
buying
one.
it, but.
I had never heard of it till the movie came out, honestly. So I just kind of assumed it was an older one.
It's a little newer.
Someone gave me a paperback of it. 2013, never mind.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too old.
At least of the movie, I've not read the book yet, which, creepy cover.
Yeah, that is.
Not as most flattering author picture, but not as creepiest. Yeah. Cannot compare to that Salem's Lot lead. You gotta look this one up. You gotta look this one up. It's all the modern Salem's Lot have it, at least. But... yeah, in the movie at least, one of the main telekinetic characters, in that obviously he tells her she has the Shining, has both TK and TP. So
was this a weird sort of chosen thing you were mentioning, or
yeah? So there's just this trend, and like if you go back to the Shining, that one. Well, if you go back to the Shining, you've got. I can't remember the guy who like wanted to protect Danny, shows up at the hotel just to get killed. Teaches him about the Shining.
The one that taught them the key,
right,
that groundskeeper dude.
Yeah. So he's got the Shining, and he recognizes this child who has a stronger Shining, and dies trying to guide this child. I'm not going to give spoilers on what the end fate of Danny is, but in Dr. Sleep, you're focusing again on Danny. It starts out with him
and his names. I mean, maybe like Danny.
Yep. Or Doc,
yeah.
as they call him. But he's talking to like the spirit of that old guy, who's still teaching him stuff. Actually,
Is this the Force? Are you sure this is? Are you sure this is the Shining?
and then
Is this the
he
Force?
eventually finds a kid who has a stronger Shining than his own and has to devote his life to protecting them. Like, The Shining is just some. I think it's at this point, I'm pretty sure
It
it's
feels like the inverted Sith rule of two. The master exists to protect the apprentice till the apprentice ascends, and they just keep doing
Yeah,
it.
and it's like it feels like there is some end goal that they're pushing towards. Maybe it's to eventually bring the old woman in the cornfield in the stand.
Maybe. I was about ready to say it would make sense to kind of end with the stand, but I didn't.
You kind of have to. Like 99.9% of humanity.
The stand traps you there,
but
but did the stand really go that hard with The Shining though?
not with the word The Shining, but there's a lot of.
Well, I guess what I meant was like the good people using it.
There's
like,
a good bet.
Okay.
There's a good bet. Like she actively reaches out to everyone in their dreams.
Okay, maybe it is
She
to
has
lead up
very
to
much
her.
TP, where the dark guy, I can't remember his name in that one, has TK and TP, if I remember right. He definitely has TK. I don't know if he has TP. I think.
This is also making me think of that. What was that Russian movie where they all had like different gifts and they had to choose the night or the day thing?
Oh, Night Watch.
And there was the
That movie
chosen
was so
one. Yeah,
good.
it kind of feels like the idea of you're creating the chosen one to then end up by he picks a side.
Right. And like, oh, that movie. If you haven't watched that movie, it's so good.
It is.
It's the subtitles, at least in the original, the sequel subtitles were normal, but like the subtitles were cool, which sounds weird, but like there's a bit where there's a kid like swimming through a pool and the subtitles he gets a nosebleed and the subtitles are formed from like in red letters and dissipate like blood in the water. Like they made the subtitles part of the movie. And also, like, separate from that, it's just an awesome movie.
Yeah, they are. Even you normally kind of go like awesome movie second year. The second one's actually pretty cool. It's actually where they bother to really get into like the origin of the whole explanation of this first movie.
Yeah,
it's pretty legit. Two movies.
And they do that thing with Supernatural where like you'll see someone do something like one of the main characters is like a psychic and like he would like drink blood or such to prepare, and they never fully explain why, but it's a super evocative image where you're like, okay, that's just how magic works in this world. They rode that line real well.
It's a very smorgasbord of all sorts of supernatural stuff at once that just get a line to darker light.
Yeah, it's
pretty
good.
sweet.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Recommend it more than this book without about 100.
Oh, you mentioned the
pages straight
subtitles.
down
I don't know if anyone said this. It is a Russian movie.
Right.
It is
Right.
That is the.
Yeah. The Doctor Sleep. You got to watch that. It has gorgeous visuals.
Was it long? Is that what
3
you said?
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the way they
It's the Avengers Endgame of Stephen King.
Yeah. The way that movie showed like remote projection was super cool though. Like they'd have a character like standing at a window and just kind of go into that far like 1,000-yard stare, and then kind of Inception style the room would flip so the window was the floor and they would just tumble out of the window and like fly across the landscape to land where they were going.
Yeah, movie-wise, they're actually just pretty good with most of King's. I mean, you were pretty... I think you mentioned this a few times, how much you liked the whole library thing in Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, that scene's super good. Yeah, I think we've rambled on about vaguely Stephen King-related stuff.
Yeah.
We showed a lot of love for Night Watch, which is not a Stephen King product.
Although I think Stephen King would probably like it.
Probably.
It's actually a good recommendation from here. If you like King, you'll probably actually like this movie.
Yeah.
It is that kind of supernatural, but with more personal elements. It's
Right.
not just two sides, Power Ranger attacking each other. You get to see some really cool people in it.
And some cool, like, very, like,
By the way, I'm trying to make as many nerd references in one podcast as possible, so I'm just going to bring up every IP I can think of.
goosebumps. It gave me goosebumps all over my body. Jennifer's body. That's the body it gave me goosebumps. Okay, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next time.
Prediction. So where are we guessing with the prologue interaction now? Now that we know it's not
I don't
end of
know.
part 2.
I'm pretty sure that your incredibly specific prediction is fucked. I don't think Sue's gonna kill Floyd.
Well, yeah, I feel like pretty obvious now.
I mean, maybe there's a power struggle.
I'd buck.
I doubt it.
I'd pass the buck and say, this isn't worth any points, by the way. I'm not trying to. I would pass the buck and guess that Ben's probably going to have to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was putting Sue in relation to Floyd now appears to be Ben to Sue.
Right.
So if I were to guess, I'd say Ben probably has to end up killing her in some sad moment.
I'm pretty sure my prediction is going to be very close but wrong, because I said that Sue would be turned in part 2. I got that. But that she'd be the primary antagonist to part 3, and Barlow's still around. So
yeah,
I think I'm missing the mark a bit on that too.
my guess on the prologue, When It'll Matter, is I kind of feel like this is a combination of guessing based on how it's played out so far and how the chapters are set up. My guess is that the end of the big one, somewhere in those tiny chapters into epilogue, is actually where I think the prologue falls in.
Okay.
I kind of feel like the way
Maybe after the lot and then
So
before the next.
because King kind of likes spoiling everything so far in what we've read. He just kind of gave away the end of Carrie, like at the end, like I think start of part 2. Right. So I kind of get the feeling the prologue is another one of those. We got not the true end told,
Right?
Like we didn't know how that was going to play out with Carrie and Sue and all that,
Right.
but we knew it was going to be a wasteland. I feel like this prologue is the same mechanic. So I suspect town gets wasted, prologue, a little dibble-dabble of personal growth at the end. That's kind of my guess where I think they might put it.
This isn't exciting, but I think you're right. I think at this point that's...
I'm basically copying Carrie.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't going to be the end of part 2, then I kind of think that's what it is.
Yeah. I have a question. Do we want to put Cody Jimmy on the board? We don't know what...
Yeah, that is an interesting
He's going to be an important character, and we didn't know that. And we haven't seen his fate yet.
And he did kind of...
I promise I'm not saying this because I actually finished the book and I'm a master of deception.
Huh. Is he turned? Yeah, we could add that because if we do, I'm willing to guess that whatever he injects himself with sustains him long enough, and that maybe Barlow gets killed and that somehow frees him. So he's on the cusp, but the death of the master, and I'm purely guessing based on all other vampire rules.
I mean, they faded into mist, which is one you don't see often. So I think
I'm kind of thinking maybe like if Barlow dies before anyone's full changed, maybe like this drug resists it long enough. Because I mean, logically we can guess Barlow gets beat at some point.
Right.
We're guessing it,
right?
Or you can assume like so. Yeah, I guess maybe maybe he holds out and then he like lives because Barlow dies early enough, and
so you think he survives?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd put it as.
I'm gonna go with him going vampire. I'm gonna put him up on the board.
This could be the game changer. For
God,
the trophy.
I hope so. God, I hope so. I made some bad decisions already. So next time we're gonna be going through part 25. There's 50, not part.
I will state one opinion so far.
Cool.
Why has no one left the town? Wone has no one ran away?
Yeah,
this is the one weird thing I'm a bit confused by. Like, when the town's getting this freaking weird, why is no one like, I'm gonna go hang out with my mom and somewhere else in Maine for a while?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's just kind of...
Let's go to Derry.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, like, as they bump into people, they keep bumping into people who are like, yeah, shit's getting pretty crazy. Sipping a tea back into my home. Wait. Why don't you spend a week somewhere else?
Right.
Like, why has no one stopped and gone? Bodies missing.
There's an
Marston
implication
House.
from both Barlow and turned Sue that half the town is vampires. Straight up, half the town.
Yeah. It's like, you can't...
Talk about background action.
Yeah, you can't be walking down the street to the grocery store noticing that 50% of people are weirdly pale and never come out during the day, and they're like, you know what? It can't be anything serious. I'm just going to go home and we'll be fine.
If nothing else, like, there's some bug going around you damn well don't want to catch.
Yeah, like, is this place going to get quarantined? I need to get out.
Right.
Like, something, but no, all even gossipers.
This is my chance to be Typhoid Mary. I'm not getting stuck here.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but that little thing has kind of been in my crawl for a bit.
That's absolutely totally fair. In your crawl. Oh, God. Okay. So yeah, through section or whatever we're gonna call those.
25.
25. Yeah, chapter 14 through 25 because there's a total of 50. We'll do that next time. After that, we'll finish up that chapter and then probably one more. We could
probably mix in on because the rest of this is so small. Mix that into that wrap up ending, like us ending kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because what were they, like a total 30 minutes for the last two little things? Or
yeah.
Kind of thing?
You have a visual like. This is the amount left after that chapter.
Yeah, that's a...
This is that chapter. It's about the size of part 1, roughly. But I guess until then, I've been Cody Jimmy. And do you want an orange?
Yeah.
Hole in the Wall Book Club is a part of the Icynewyear Productions Network, and produced and edited by Anthony Sheets. The music in this episode is Supernatural Radio by Kevin MacLeod. There'll be a link to his license and website in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of us, tweet us at Icynewyear, or send an email to icynewyear@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to tell a friend, or leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice. Word of mouth and 5-star reviews really help us get out in front of more people, and let us expand and do more things. More information on the show can be found on icynewyear.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.